Okay, students, so we want to be able to install Visual Studio, pick a browser, go to the top, type Visual Studio. Microsoft will change it to visualstudio.microsoft.com. Go to Downloads at the top, Community, Free Download. Let's say Save As. Pick your desktop. Make it easy to find. Once it's finished downloading, it will be on your desktop. Now, keep in mind, that is not the installation. That is just a tiny little setup file. So when it's there, you can actually close your browser window and just run from your desktop. So I run from my desktop. It comes up and it says, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? Yes, and obviously it's from Microsoft, so I'm not entirely sure why I'd even ask that question. But Visual Studio Installer, before you get started, you need to set up a few things so you can configure your installation, privacy statement, software license, blah, blah, blah. That goes by relatively quickly, as you can see there. Then you get this. Now I'm going to do this so it's a little clearer. Out of all of this stuff, the only thing you have to have installed is the .NET desktop environment. If you're looking for a little more backward compatibility, you can go to 4.8, 4.6 to 4.7 frameworks, but honestly, not a requirement. And if you decide later on that you need more of these, or you want Python installed, or the .NET multi-platform user environment, which is colloquially known as MAUI, you can do that later on. C++, all of this other stuff, if you want to install it later on, you can go back and you can do that. If you have a fast, or at least a relatively fast download capability, you can click the left button. If you want to, you can click the right button. It will install it first and then install it. It doesn't really matter. Pick one. You can see it here. It puts it all under this button when you put this download thing here. So install while downloading, or download all, then install. I don't know why they made two buttons for that. They didn't ask me, so I'm just going to say install while downloading. And then you have to hit this stupid install button. Microsoft. Now I also have Visual Studio Community 2019 installed on here, so you won't have that on your screen. I have it for backward compatibility for other development that I used to do. Now I'm using this one. It's as compatible as the other one for the most part. There are some differences, but you won't run into them in this course. Actually, you won't run into them in .NET 1 or .NET 2. Let's see. Nothing else to do at this particular juncture. It will go through its little bar graph of installation. And actually, I like bar graphs, so that's nice. this doesn't take an overwhelming amount of time, except if you have a slow internet connection. This can take a little while, but fortunately you only need the .NET section, which is one check mark as I showed you, and it doesn't really take too long. But if you do have a slow internet connection, it can take up to an hour. Forewarned is forearmed. On my system, it's not going to take that long. I have a fast internet connection. I shouldn't say so much like an idiot, but okay. I wanted to make this video so that you have something to see that shows you what the new installation looks like, because when it was in development, it looked different. When it finishes, it will start up and it will ask you to sign in to Visual Studio. It recognizes me because of my sign-on the system, but you may have to make an account. You might be able to just sign in on your CMU account. I don't know. So if you use your CMU email address, it might just go ahead and take you. Now I have a bunch of stuff that's already here, you know. I'm going to go through, create a new project, which is basically your first project. I think it's task 2, the Hello World project. There's a couple of things I want you to keep in mind. During this entire course, I want you to use Windows Forms Applications, WFA, I'll call it frequently. I don't care what the handouts say, Windows Forms Applications. Now, to make this a little bit easier, language, C#, platforms, Windows. And then it will come up with this particular stuff: class library, Windows Forms app, Windows Forms Applications. Okay, so click that, click next. We'll say hello world fall 2022. Now, the location defaults to a location which would be hard for you to find on a regular basis. Change it by hitting these 3 dots. Go to Desktop, select Folder. This puts you on your desktop. Easy to do, everything's all hunky-dory that way. Click this, it'll make it easier for both you and me. You don't have to click it, it's not going to be a disaster if you don't. It'll just be a little bit confusing to you at first. Click next. There is a choice of 6.0 library, 5.0 library. It says it's out of support, but it'll still work. Or Core 3.1, which is long-term support. Any of these will work, but you might as well stick with 6. Create. It doesn't take long to create a project. A project includes a great many things, so keep that in mind. It says loading to the designer. When you're programming a Windows Forms app, you get this designer form that you'll be designing on. Go over here to the top left, should be there, toolbox. Now, there'll be some stuff in the toolbox, but first, drag your, first, go up here to form. There is a teeny tiny little thumbtack looking thing. Click it, go back to the toolbox. There's another one here, click it. And now your form is out here to the right of your toolbox. It'll make it a lot easier, and it will come up that way from now on every single time. If for some reason it doesn't, it's because of that, and you can just click the thumbtacks again, and then it'll correct it. Okay, so we want to make a program that says hello world. Just click the top item there. It says all Windows Forms provides every tool in the toolbox. Find the one that's marked label, which is right here. Drag it someplace out here on the toolbox. I like to do it in the upper left area, but you don't have to. Okay. Label. Go out here to the right. There is a thing that points A to Z. It's in the middle of the two purple items here. Click that and then scroll all the way to the top. There is a thing that says name, and it's in parentheses. This is good. We're going to call the label. I'm just going to call it LBL, and we're going to say hello. Now, strictly speaking, you don't have to give a name to any component, but it's a very good idea, especially as you get into larger programs. Now go down to text where it says label and just blank it out. When you press enter on it, you'll see it goes away. Now, let's find a blank space in the middle of the form. You'll see the label seems to disappear. Click it once. Now, click it twice. And it opens up a execution mark called Form1 load. Now I could have named Form1, but in this case, I'll tell you the truth, I forgot. And it doesn't really matter, so Form1 is only called when the program very first executes, and only that time. Now, let's take LBL hello, and if you put a dot behind it, there's some things that could come up here, but I'm going to save a little bit of time, and I'm going to start typing, and I put a T there, and you'll see that one of the things that comes up here is text. Double click it, put a space, an equal sign, another space. If you put a quote mark, it will put another quote mark, and you can type between them. and say hello world. Hit the end key, hit the semicolon. Okay, so that's our program. All it's going to do is this. If you hit the F5 key, it will run the program. You can also hit the little run thing. Here's our hello world. Because it was the very first thing on the form to run, it prints this out by sticking the words hello world into label hello. Okay, and it executes that program. I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to show you what happens when we make a minor modification to this particular program. Now, we know that there is a label here on the form, which I just hid, sorry. Now, if we go over here and we look for something called the button, I'm going to put it roughly here. The button is highlighted, so I'm going to go over here and you can see there's its name. I'm going to say BTN, and I'm going to say, I'm going to call it Go, so that we can have it that way. Now I'm going to go over here to text for the button. I'm going to erase what's there, and I'm going to put the word Go. Now, what I type in text here is not really meaningful, but you will see that for the user, this seems to indicate something's going to happen, and it's going to go. Double-click the button, and it opens another place. And we're going to change LBL hello. And by the way, once that starts to come up like that did, let me back up and show you. LBL, and you can see that's the thing. You can hit the tab key. Okay. Dot text is just barely down here. You can hit the tab key. Equals, and I'm going to make it so that when I click go, maybe I should change this to okay. Now there's a thing up here, looks like a play button. Or you can use this one, which has the name of the program, okay? Or you can hit the F5 key. Let's use this one. And you can see hello world. When I click go, it says good night world. Now if I click it again, it's still going to say good night world, because that's all that does. It changes the text to good night world. It doesn't change it to anything else. So this is what you should use other than, instead of message box. You could use message box show, but it's really for error messages. The handout does show it, and it does work, but there is an issue. It's not really a serious one, but when you go to do the when you go to do the looping, if you do the loops with message box show, you have to press OK each and every time you display something. And there's multiple courses that I teach, and there's like 50 of you, and each time I have to hit a OK, that's like 250 times, and it gets really annoying for me. So what I want you to do is I want you to do this. I'm going to just show you in this, but you should get the rough idea. Let's go back to the form, and I'm going to show you, it's called a list box. And drag it over. I'm just going to drag it over here in the middle of the form, but you can put it kind of wherever you need to. And you can put multiple list boxes on the form, by the way, so just so you know. Now I'm going to call this one LSB list box, and I'm going to call it for. There's nothing that really requires you to take out the text that's in there. In fact, I'm not even sure that it even has, no, it doesn't even have a text option, so don't worry about it. So, when this executes, and you can make it execute two different ways, but it will list things out in an order so that it's easy for you to display things when you have multiple things. So I'm going to put a button here. I'm a little shaky, so bear with me. Okay, so button btn 4 and text show 4. Why isn't it showing it? That's weird. Button 4. Oh, right. Forgot about that change. Okay, right. Show 4. Press and hold the control key. There. Okay. Now, show 4, and double click the button. There's the button for click. Now, we're going to start a for loop here. There's the for. And I'm just going to use for I equals one while I is less than or equal to, here, I'm just going to finish it out. That's basically what we want. Okay, so it's going to count from 1 to 10, and the I at the end that says plus plus, that simply means increment by 1. That is to say, it's the same as saying I equals I plus 1. Okay, now there's two schools of thought, by the way, about this bracing scheme. In C++, you typically see it like this because then you can draw a line, a straight line, from brace to brace and know whether you've missed a brace or not. Oh, come on. Go to the end of the line. Thank you. Sometimes compilers just don't. Go to the end of the line. Thank you. This version of this compiler is going to drive me bonkers. I don't want that. If I wanted that, I'd have typed that. I'm going to turn off this autocomplete stupidity. Okay, I'm just going to type over. Now then, LSB 4 dot items. Now I know that seems contrary, but just bear with me. Dot add, and it will put in I. Now, strictly speaking, you don't have to do what I'm about to do, but it's a good idea. ToString simply converts the integer back into a string, which is required for the list box in most cases. Now, this will do an output. So let's go up here, run this so you can see it. Obviously, this still works. Show 4. As you can see, this prints all of this out, but it prints it in a box in an orderly fashion. Rather than making me click this 10 times, it actually just prints out all 10 items so that I don't have to press a button 10 times. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Now, when you're doing the other loops that are in the last task, okay, feel free to you've got the one for the 4, feel free to just add on to that and put another list box, another list box, another list box, and just have 3 more buttons, one for each, and do it that way. That's going to be the easiest way for you to do that. Okay, so that should get you started for this week. Close that out that way. And close this out this way. And of course, close that out. So that should be pretty much everything.